I don't know about you, but I am very excited to hear more about the research that's being done. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Johnathan. So welcome Johnathan to the stage.
Thank you very much. Can y'all hear me? I can hear me, so you can probably hear me pretty well. Great. Well, thank you so much, Cheyenne and the FDRS board for giving us the opportunity to speak to you on Friday evening and to curating such a tremendous agenda that we have ahead of us for the next couple of days. And I want to reiterate what Cheyenne just said to all of you. Thank you so much for those of you that participated in the live research over the last couple of days. It was a tremendously rewarding experience for me and for our team to be able to interact with you all for that, and I hope it was a good experience for you all too. I'm Johnathan Kartt. I'm the CEO of the Lipedema Foundation, and I'm going to talk to you about the Lipedema Research Roadmap that we released a few months ago. Before doing that, just a little bit about the foundation and the work that we do in some of our resources. So much of what the foundation does is support research, and we do that largely through making grants to projects all over the world. We've given $12.5 million in grant funding since we started, and much of that research is focused on better understanding the... Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's still early days. I'll show a slide in a second that makes that point, but much of the research that we've supported to date has gone to trying to better understand the biology of lipedema as well as improving diagnosis. We also work to build research infrastructure through things like the Lipedema Foundation registry and biobanks, which I'll talk about more in a second. And we work to build awareness, and increasingly in recent years we've been focusing intentionally on trying to build clinician awareness. This is our tremendous team. Almost everyone on this slide is here in person. We have a couple of booths out in the exhibition hall. Please come say hi to us, stop us in the halls. We really look forward to getting to meet you individually. Okay, something is funny with the projection here. This is just a handful of the resources that we have available on our website. So the first thing is go check out lipedema.org, which is our webpage. And tons of resources there. We have paper versions of some of those things at our booth, so come by and check those out. I want to highlight just a couple that we've heard that have been particularly helpful for patients and clinicians. The first is a brochure. We've given out something, at last count, like 390,000 brochures. Come and sign up for those on our website. We'll send you as many as you want. They're great for patients. They're great to give to providers, anyone who's new to lipedema. And in the last couple of months, we launched a new resource, which is our Clinician's Guide. And this is still brand new. We just today put up on our website an ability to be able to order print copies of this. So go to the Contact Us page of our website if you want to do that. But we've been hearing great things from folks in the provider community and also in the patient community. Several patients have told us that they've already taken the electronic version of that Clinician's Guide and uploaded it to their patient portal for their providers, and that's been really well received. It's shown up when they've gone in for their next visit. So definitely take advantage of that Clinician's Guide. Plenty more on our website, just a selection of some of the resources that we've got. Okay, the roadmap. So this chart, some of you may have seen this before, shows all of the primary data papers that have been published on lipedema since the 20th century. And you see just this crazy hockey stick kind of shape, right? Tons of growth in the last 5 years. And fully half of the primary data papers have been published in the last 5 years. So this is tremendously exciting, right? Things are taking off. We've learned a lot in the last 5 years. And if you play this forward, you can imagine that we're just going to learn a whole lot more in the next 5 years. But it's still really early. The number of papers that are out there is still pretty small. And many of the folks that have been in this game for a while know that there are a lot of challenges that are facing us as a field, right? We just don't have a great understanding of the underlying biology of lipedema. It's still early in terms of the research. And a number of factors make it challenging to advance the research. So the fact that we're still reliant on a clinical diagnosis, the fact that we lack some basic infrastructure in the field that much more mature fields have already developed. We're working to develop some of those things, but it's still early days. And it's not all doom and gloom. There are definitely some bright spots out there. And just to point to a couple of those who have been in this field for a long time can attest that clinical awareness is growing. And it's definitely not where it needs to be. But just anecdotally, the number of clinicians that proactively reach out to us through our info@ email address has grown exponentially just in the last couple of years. The National Institutes of Health, so the government body that funds research, the NIH, has demonstrated some interest in lipedema research as well. And so as of the last couple of months, we now have our second R01. So this is a substantial, prestigious grant from the NIH, the second R01 for lipedema research. And the first one went to Dr. Rochelle Crescenzi, who's going to be speaking at this conference for her work on sodium imaging. Absolutely. And the second one was to Carrie Schauber at Columbia University for her work on developing models for lipedema. So that's really exciting. And a few months ago on the infrastructure side of things, we made a grant to Dr. Crescenzi and her co-principal investigator, Dr. Erin Aday at Vanderbilt University, to launch a dedicated lipedema biobank, which is now enrolling. So it's so exciting to hear that they're enrolling patients in that study now. Okay, so early days, lots of opportunities, lots of challenges. We need a strategy. We need something that's going to point us in the right direction. And so a lipedema research roadmap. And I've got a short amount of time. There are tons of recommendations in the roadmap. Please go check it out. Here's a QR code that'll take you to it. You can go to lipedema.org/roadmap. It's recommendations across 6 areas where we need to make progress against the research. And I'll highlight just a couple of the recommendations from the research roadmap. So one of the chapters is about better understanding the biology, and it highlights some of the key unresolved questions that we just need to make progress against. And so, for example, lipedema seems to have a component that's protective metabolically, right? There are, especially in the early stages, seem to be lower rates of metabolic complications for folks with lipedema. What could be driving that, right? You see a couple of photos here that are particularly indicative of a very common feature for many folks with lipedema, which is what's called the cuff sign at the ankles and at the wrists, right? Not all lipedema patients have it. It's something that seems like progresses over time. But that's a particularly unique feature of lipedema. What could be causing that, right? We really need to figure that out. And something that we hear constantly from folks in the patient and the clinical communities is there's this whole new class of drugs, the GLP-1 agonists, that are all over the news. Many of the folks in this room have been talking about them. Do those help folks with lipedema? And if so, what does that tell us about the underlying biology of the disease, right? So there's plenty of unresolved questions. There are recommendations in the roadmap for ways that we can start chipping away at and finding some answers. Another recommendation, we've got to increase participation in studies, and we've got to get access to more well-characterized samples from patients with lipedema so we can do better research. And so how can you help with this, the folks in this room? How can you all help with this? Well, if you're a clinician, let us know if you have samples to share, especially if you've ever provided samples for research before, you've got some research experience. We want to talk to you. We're working on a couple of things that'll make it easier to get those samples where they need to go to research teams that can use them to start advancing their studies. Please come talk to us in the hallways. And if you're a patient, watch out for future opportunities to participate in research. And it's not just the future. There's a handful that are already recruiting right now. There's research going on all the time. If you live near Baton Rouge, Laredo, Texas, Nashville, or Cleveland, Ohio, please take a photo of this slide. I'll leave it up for a second. And contact the research coordinators at the email and/or the phone number that are on this slide. These folks are recruiting. I mentioned earlier the Lipedema Foundation Biobank at Vanderbilt that Dr. Crescenzi is leading. That's the second one from the bottom, building lipedema research resources. But if you live near these places, please reach out to find out if you might be a good fit for the study. Okay, the other thing we need is we need more talent in the field, in the research field and the clinical field. You see a handful of specialties on both the clinical and the research sides up there where we are in particular need of just great minds, people who can really advance things. And so one thing that you can do to help is just become an evangelist in your field if you're one of these folks. Get out there and speak. And if you're particularly outgoing, if you have a passion for getting up on stage and talking to folks, come talk to us. We can think of and we can connect you to opportunities to talk to others in your specialties. And one thing that a lot of the folks in this room are doing, we're doing it too, is going clinic by clinic, physician by physician, therapist by therapist to tell them and teach them about lipedema. But it's so much more effective to try and reach people at scale. And one way that we can do that is through professional societies. And we really got to get on the agendas of those societies. So if you're on the board or an education committee or in any leadership role at a professional society that you're a member of, or if you know someone who's in one of those positions, come talk to us. We want to know what can we do to go talk to the leadership of those societies to make sure that they know about lipedema. We are happy to give as many informational talks to those folks as you can throw our way. And we want to get on the agendas at their annual conferences to make sure that those folks recognize lipedema and they know how to diagnose and they know how to treat it. Okay, time's short, so I will just mention one other resource that we launched as a companion to the research roadmap. And this is a Lipedema Research Idea Database. And the address to go reach that is there. It's an open database of ideas about lipedema, what might be going on with it, things that folks should research. And I think the takeaway is we want your ideas. We want to know what you think is important for researchers to study. And if you go to that QR code, you can submit an idea. We'll ask you to frame it in the form of a hypothesis or a research question, and to fill out a little bit of additional information to help us understand why you think it's an important question and help us contextualize a little bit. But as soon as you submit it, unless you tell us otherwise by checking a box, it will immediately go into this public database that anyone in the world can access. And I can't promise that every idea that's submitted is something that a researcher is going to look into. But we envision sharing this with the research community to stimulate their thinking, see if there's anything that sparks an idea that they might want to pick up in their labs, and also is going to help shape our thinking. A lot of this will probably make it into a future version of the research roadmap. All right, that's it. I'm out of time. This is how you can contact us, roadmap@lipedema.org or info@lipedema.org. And please come talk to us at the booth. We look forward to meeting you. Thanks.